speaking of not spending, this would probably be a not spending, what we'll lead this podcast episode off with. But Josh Naylor, some rumors came out about Josh Naylor out of the winter meetings, and it was reported by Paul Hoynes of the Cleveland Plain Dealer that the Cubs, Mariners, and Pirates were interested in Josh Naylor, and there were some rumors floating around about the Guardians' first baseman. He's only projected to make $7 million this year. He's got 2 years before he's a free agent. The Guardians almost never sign their guys to long-term extensions, even if they're young, controllable, and have a high amount of upside outside of Jose Ramirez, who they have signed. So, Lyle, I'm going to bring this around to you. Is Josh Naylor a good fit with the Mariners?
He is. I like the player. I like the profile. I think the last 2 years he's been really good. The problem is, tying this all back into spending, are there not guys on the market who could put up similar production to Josh Naylor and you wouldn't have to give up something valuable? Because he would cost something valuable in a trade.
I'm sure there are, and we could make that case for most guys. It's like trading for the Rays guys.
I think Naylor's a step below the Rays guys. If you were to trade for a Rosarena or Paredes, I think that's a step up, and I think those guys are probably a little better than Naylor in terms of making true impact. But it is the same idea that you'd have to give up something valuable, and you would have to part with either a high-end prospect or a young starting pitcher, maybe both, for those Rays guys. For Naylor, it'd probably be a little bit less. I bet you it would be some prospect or two within your top 10. I don't think it would cost one of the young arms to get him, but it would cost a prospect that people value. And that is more to give up than it would be if you were going to just go and spend money on somebody.
I'm sure there would. And you are speaking very logically. You are really. I'm going to give you a round of applause. The logic coming out of your mouth right now, it is music to my ears. I mean, why don't you just spend money? The problem is, Lyle, why won't they spend money?
They're cheap.
There we go. There we go. So the option is Josh Naylor, if there's interest there, which, again, this makes sense. It's not like he costs nothing. He would cost $7 million on top of what they would give up. If it's a prospect, you're trading essentially no salary for $7.2 million, which is about the number, and you get a little bit more expensive, a little bit over $10 million next season in his final year before free agency, I would imagine. But this isn't something Mitch Garver couldn't already repeat, I would say, especially if the Mariners feel like they want to buy into Ty France at Driveline. It's like, okay, we see all these videos of Ty France at Driveline. He looks great. We're confident Ty's going to have a good 2024 season. In fact, given our financial resources, Ty France has to have a really good 2024 season. So we're going to need him at first base. However, Josh Naylor could still occupy the DH spot and be good. The problem is, you could sign Mitch Garver for a very fair amount, and he could, if he's healthy, put up the same production in that DH role. So that's where I see where you're coming from with that there are definitely options there for Josh Naylor, for you not to give up the prospect and instead fill that DH role with somebody else that is maybe a little bit more pricey, but works out just the same.
Okay, now I'm going to play devil's advocate to you. The flip side of signing Mitch Garver versus trading for Josh Naylor is Naylor's on the field a bit more than Garver is, and Naylor actually plays some pretty good first base defense. So with this idea, you could flip Naylor and Ty between first base and DH. Neither of them have to work their tails off playing the field 162 games. They could split it. Naylor was in the 88th percentile in outs above average this past year, so he can play some good first base defense. And both those guys, if Ty gets back to the guy he once was, can hit and can hit for some authority. So if it is really going to come through trades, what have we said? If they left Dom Canzone alone in left field but filled the other three spots, third base, outfield, DH, we'd be okay with it. I would kind of hate to see it have to be 3 trades, because that means you're giving some valuable pieces out. You're getting some valuable pieces out of your organization. But just in terms of on-field big league production in 24, if you were going to get Josh Naylor, if you were going to get Isaac Paredes, and you were going to get Randy Arozarena, that is a massive upgrade. And Josh Naylor is a really good hitter. The last 2 years, he's been a very good hitter. So it would be nice if they just signed some guys, but with the cards they've been dealt, maybe it would have to look something like that, which, by the way, they trade for those 3 guys. That's $18 million under the payroll budget.
And I like you slip the cards you've been dealt there in there. That was nice.
Yeah,
I'll give you credit for that. I'll give you props for that. I'll say one other option who's on the field that you could sign. We've definitely talked about him, but a certain someone was spotted working out in the very same shirt I do own with Ken Griffey Jr. blowing a gum bubble, working out, getting ready for the season. Just, coincidence. His hitting coach is now a Mariners hitting coach. Just coincidences, just similar things.
For those that are not as active on social media as we are, would you like to fill everybody in on who this is?
Yeah, so Jorge Soler had a Ken Griffey Jr. shirt working out yesterday.
At time of recording, yes, when this comes out Monday.
Yeah. So that was nice to see. I did like that. It's a good choice of shirt, I will say, one of my favorite shirts.
I'm surprised I don't own one, to be honest. They're like the sickest shirts. I know Ty France owns one. A bunch of guys own one because why? They're super cool. You own one.
Yeah, exactly. What would puzzle me about a trade like this is that this doesn't really make sense from the Guardians' side. Like, they can't hit, first of all. They are a crummy hitting team. Second of all, Josh Naylor was their best bat last year. You might think, well, TJ, Jose Ramirez. No, like, Josh Naylor was the best hitter on the Guardians last year, was not Jose Ramirez. And the way it usually works out in Cleveland, again, outside of Jose Ramirez, once these guys get to 1 year before their free agency, they will get traded. For example, Shane Bieber is 1 year away from free agency right now. He'll probably get traded this offseason because they could not afford the rates that these starting pitchers are going to go for, or these everyday players are going to go for. Josh Naylor might not be all that expensive since he's only a first baseman. But this gives, if he does get traded, I mean, that would be the reason why. Because I couldn't think of any other reason why the Guardians would want to trade their best hitter off a roster that already struggles a ton. So that leads me to think that the Mariners would have to overpay to actually make this happen. And if they did have to overpay, I would probably lean away from this.
I'm with you on that. I like the player. He would certainly help. Again, I just hate the idea of having to make your team better strictly through trades all offseason. That's where our gripe is. Although, if you want to just dive in on Josh Naylor, the player, a little bit, you're talking about a guy who's hit 37 bombs in the last 2 years. He had a 128 WRC plus in 23. He had a 119 WRC plus in 22. So he's been well above league average at the plate the last 2 seasons. His OPS has been well over 800 the last 2 seasons. And he doesn't strike out much. He doesn't walk a whole ton, but he's striking out less than 14% of the time. And what do the Mariners want? They want guys that are not going to strike out. Josh Naylor will not strike out.
He's a big chase guy. He's going to swing at a lot of pitches, and he's going to make contact with a lot of them as well. He's not the biggest power profile guy. He has decent exit velocities. He's had decent expected slugging numbers, expected batting average, quality of contact, etc. But it's not really the volume of power you want from a first baseman. He's honestly kind of similar to Ty France at first base, with maybe a slightly better power profile and maybe a little bit better of an athlete profile as well. But they're actually shockingly similar, if I'm going to lie, which, if you were to have them both on this roster, is a very, I would say, interesting philosophical fit. But, Ty France is a contact over power first baseman, and Josh Naylor is a contact over power first baseman. And then all of a sudden you think, okay, well, we're trying to frame our roster as contact over power. So this actually might work out a little bit better than you would think.
And like you said, Josh Naylor will chase some pitches out of the zone, but it doesn't result in strikeouts. Now, it may result in some weak pop-outs. It may result in some weak ground-outs, but he doesn't strike out. And above all that, he is a very good hitter. He's not going to blow you out of the water with his WAR. He's about a 2 to 2.5 win player on a yearly basis, but he would help this team. And again, if you switch him and Ty France off every night between DH and first base, it's not the worst solution in the world, because Naylor has a track record of being a good hitter. So you have to at least like that.
Yeah, you do have to at least like that. So this probably means you send Locklear back, I would guess. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not going to carry Locklear in the minor leagues and then these two guys in the big leagues with Ty France and Josh Naylor. That would probably be who goes back, and then maybe the prospect on top of that, if I'm gonna take a swing at what this would cost. So really, it's up to the person whether or not they'd be willing to part with some of those pieces to get better for 2 seasons. I mean, it's not promised they'd want to sign him long term. I would imagine if you want to do this trade, you would sort of have an idea already if you'd want to sign Josh Naylor long term. But according to some of our comments today, they should avoid it because Josh Naylor is, quote, a brat. So we got to take that into consideration.
We'll take this into consideration too. One upside to Paul Sewald no longer being on the team. Josh Naylor's not going to walk into spring training in the middle of February. First day position players have to report and get into a fight in the clubhouse because Paul Sewald rocked the baby at him last year at the end of the game. Remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. So maybe he'll have to save it for when they play the Diamondbacks.
Man, that would be something. I wonder whose side people would take in that scenario, because even though Paul Sewald would be on the other team, hypothetically, he's still super close friends with a bunch of guys on the Mariners. So that would be depends if they like the trade or not. If they thought it was a cheap out, then I think they might side with Sewald. The Mariners players just start fighting their own guy in defense of Paul Sewald.
Yeah.
Man, that would be something. I mean, I thought it was hilarious when he rocked the baby in the postseason a couple years ago, but yeah, I don't know.
I didn't realize his reputation was so low. I mean, we posted our show, we posted a reaction video to this rumor today on our social media channels, and I was kind of shocked the amount of responses I got were like, "No, he's toxic. Nope, he's an ass. No, please don't trade for him. He's bad. He's bad to have in your clubhouse." I'm like, really? Like, he rocked the baby once?
It was more, he did it a few times. It's kind of his thing now. And in fact, I'm sure if he was in Seattle, you'd probably see it a few times here. But no, I don't think he is a clubhouse problem by any stretch. Are you shocked that a bunch of people on social media who just spew negativity say, no, I don't want him. Oh, he's toxic. Like, what do you expect? Sunshine and roses in our comment sections?
That's true. I will give us credit, Lyle. We're a little bit over a full year. We're over a full year into this thing, and at first we really didn't have many comments at all. We were starting to grow. We were doing our best to churn out content and get some reaction. And now that we have all the reaction, I mean, man, you do see, as much as you feel like we've thought out a concise, well thought out take using logic, using numbers, using whatever else you want to consider with that. We put it out, and people still manage to come out of the woodwork. I will give you people credit that you exist. I mean, man, credit to you guys for finding your own path in this life where you are free to think what you want, and you sure do. And we really appreciate all the people from all the different paths who come along with us.